technology done right can help us all be more productive. So I'm excited to introduce 3 leading edge providers that are already creating success for some of our most innovative brokers and agents. So please, welcome to our panel. Wow, they're fast. The Chief Executive Officer of Offers, Rich Swire. Chief Executive Officer of Opcity, Ben Rubenstein. And the Chief Executive Officer of Ojo Labs, John Berkowitz. All right, so welcome, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to spend time with us and talk about some of the innovative things that you're all working on. We're basically going to geek out for the next 20 minutes or so that's pretty exciting. So the question to all of you, right, just to sort of frame the conversation for our agents and brokers here. As you know, ERA is all about serving agents. In your words, how does your company serve agents?
Great question. First and foremost, when I started the company about 5 years ago, we went door to door working with agents across the country, listening to what they need and how they wanted to embrace technology and incorporate it into their day-to-day lives. So one of the things that we do from our support team, sales team, tech team, is we are an open door conversation with agents since the day we started. So we serve agents not just from a culture perspective, but from a product vision perspective. As far as the value delivery that we offer, just as you heard that great speaker that just spoke before us, we provide a lot of leverage to agents that are looking to really grow their business using not just the power of data, which we'll talk about, but also working with them and generating listings using some of the kind of best technology and best data out there currently today. And that's kind of where we've always focused our energy, is really saying, how do we help you grow your business? How do we help you get new listings?
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so at Opcity, I think the 2 things we help agents with the most is 2 of their most valuable assets, their time and their money. In marketing, on the money side, agents have spent a tremendous amount of money up front on buying leads, and we completely changed that entire game. We say, don't spend any money up front on online advertising, don't spend any money up front on any advertising. We take all of that risk ourselves and say, we're going to help you save money by only paying on success. So we only charge when the agent makes money, and I think that is something we listen to a lot of agents that say, I'm frustrated with spending a lot up front and not necessarily getting anything in return. And the other thing we do is really help them save time. If you have a lot of online leads, what Jason was talking about before, it takes a lot of time to cull through them, find the right customer, and so we take a lot of that off their plate. Up front, we not only work all of their leads or leads that we do our own, we call them, we scrub them, we screen them, and we do a warm transfer to them. So we get them much further down the process to save the agents a lot of time and focus on what they do best.
Cool. Thanks. Good.
So the way Ojo serves agents, over the last 3 years, we've built an employee for you all. It is an artificial intelligence platform that solves the chicken and egg problem with conversational assistants, which is nobody wants to talk to a stupid machine, and it takes millions of people to make a machine smart. And so what that translates into is, picture this product as if Siri or Realtor.com made a baby with Zillow or Realtor.com made a baby with Zillow or Alexa, right? And then that baby went to college. And that baby now works for you. And so you have an employee that doesn't sleep and takes internet leads or people in your sphere and answers their questions when you might not otherwise want to. And then when it's really time for an expert realtor, Ojo brings in that realtor.
Cool. Sounds like an interesting offering. Okay. Rich, so for anyone who's interested in generating more listings this year, what's the biggest impact you provide agents above and beyond what they currently are doing to get listings?
So there's really 3 primary things that we do. And again, this is working with best practices and top agents across the country. First thing that we do, which really makes us unique in the industry, is we actually predict future listings. So we actually look at over 250 variables around a home and across the United States, predict up to a 70% accuracy of what's going to be listed in the next 12 months. So we then take that data, that prediction data, and then we actually validate it by actually surveying those homeowners and seeing if anybody's looking to list in the next 3, 6, 12 months, which helps us validate our data, but also generate new listing leads. And then finally, we help those agents that work with us nurture those leads. This is something that we've been working with for the last 3 to 4 years. So it's just like what we'll learn today about big data and about data itself is time will make it more accurate and more useful for those agents. And what's empowering about what we've done for agents, I think, over the last 3 years, and the most important thing is it's really about generating new revenue. It's about going beyond your sphere. It's going beyond buyer leads on popular websites. This is about dominating your farm and generating revenue outside of what your normal sphere of influence would offer.
Interesting. Okay, great. Thanks. All right, Ben. So Opcity has grown really fast. We just talked earlier today, and I was fascinated to see that how fast you all have grown quickly. With over 20,000 agents, 2,500 brokerages, and most importantly, over 50 ERA franchisees already working with you in less than 2 years of business. What do you attribute your fast growth to?
I think a lot of the fast growth is due to the business model in general. Saying to an agent or broker, we are completely aligned with your success, only pay us when you get paid, has brought a lot of agents and brokers on pretty quickly. It's really interesting. I think the way you need all three parts of the process, right? The first is speed to contact. Conversion rate drops 400%. Calling less than 5 or more than 30 minutes versus less than 5 minutes. Our call center is open 24 hours a day. We call between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. and have automated text conversations between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. 7 days a week. And so we're able to get to your average consumer in less than 20 seconds. So that first piece of getting a hold of someone very, very quickly is critical. I'd say the second piece is matching, and that's probably the most important part. You'll see so many agents and brokers will complain, this lead was no good, maybe the person only spoke Spanish, right? That doesn't mean it's a bad lead, it means it just went to the wrong agent. And centrally looking at connecting the right consumer to the right agent at the right time is super important. And then finally, the accountability factor, right? Making sure that there's a process to watch and help your peers and agents make sure that the deal closes is critical. So yeah, I think a lot of the fast growth has just been people very, very excited about the process of not paying up front and only paying on success. One last thing on that. Recently, a lot of brokers have come to us and said, hey, we love your process so much about how you help convert leads. Can I give you all of my leads to help convert? And that's probably the fastest growing part of our business is the area where we're able to take a broker's leads that they've spent a lot of money and time generating and get a 3 to 5x conversion on them.
Interesting. So actually, follow-up question for you then. So how many languages does your call center speak right now, right? So I ran a brokerage where the clientele was primarily Chinese,
yep.
Right? If I were going to transfer leads to you. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So for our own leads that we buy, the two main languages are English and Spanish today. If we had a broker who said, listen, I got a pile of leads that only speak a specific language, we'd go out and hire that person. Oh. Our team is 320 people. We're in Austin, Texas. We could put a spec out there for anyone in any language.
Okay, yep. Cool, thanks. All right, John. So for Ojo, there's an awful lot of buzz and hype around AI in our industry. Entirely true. What are the required ingredients to build an AI platform that will scale and succeed for the real estate industry?
AI is very easy to say. Turns out a little harder to build. We can tell you that after 3 years, like 200,000 engineering hours. There's a few major components to actually have a commercially viable product. The first is data. We talk about it all the time. You need large data sets to learn off of. Then you need to give those data sets to a machine that is well built and can scale, process tons of data on the fly. Turns out the smartest data science teams in the country, Google, Amazon, all of these, have yet to actually build a technology that doesn't need human help. And so no matter how smart your machine is, you need it to have help to train it real time. So they need a group of humans integrated into that system. Now you got this really great machine, it has to do something valuable. And so you have to find a solution in an industry. Ojo's solution is, turns out just because you fill out a form on a portal or you're playing around looking at homes, it doesn't mean you necessarily are ready to go buy a home. You have questions, and it turns out asking questions to a realtor at midnight is challenging. And so we put all those things together to help answer those questions that a realtor might not otherwise want to jump in on.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you all probably weren't here yesterday when John Payton was here, who's the president of the Realty franchise group. But one of the initiatives that we have going on at Realty is how can we harness all of the data that we're capturing across all of the brands which is obviously a substantial amount of data, right? So one of the things as a broker that I always had challenges with, I guess, is that some of the folks that maybe came before you all that talked about big data and talked about analytics and all that, the problem that I had is that they've got a bunch of big data, I don't doubt that, right? And they're doing an awful lot of analysis, I don't doubt that either, but their pricing was so high that, for example, in a 1,000-house farm, right, it would cost me 10x more to use their services. So even if their data made it 10 times more efficient, I'd rather just send out cards to everybody so that everybody would hear about me anyway, right? So you all are the next sort of generation of data and analysis and what's driving value. But talk to me a little bit about, for each of you, what the ROI is looking like for your clients, or whether, it's all still just a bunch of propeller heads sitting in a back room talking about data, but not actually generating value for our agents.
That's a great question, because you're right. Anytime there's technology out there, you always have that hype cycle of this is cool, this is awesome, and it has a lot of branding, but the reality is the results are not there. And partially it's because it hasn't gotten out to the most important component, which is the agents in the field. How are they going to interpret it? How are they going to use it? We measure ROI two ways. The first one, obviously, with putting money in, you want to get more money out. Predictive analytics, which is the fancy way of saying how we predict future listings, we do significantly to reduce the amount of marketing you need to spend, almost by 70%. And so that's really the key that we've always looked at predictive analytics. And we were in the land, if you will, of predictive analytics here in Vegas. If you go over to the sports book down the hall, they're going to predict all the games tonight. They use the same mathematics that we use, except for we use homes, and is it a 3-2? Is the loan due in the next month? So it's very similar, and this kind of approach to your business is only going to allow you to be first in the door, and that's the second component of our ROI. It's one thing to save money, and obviously you want to make money, but in order to make money, you actually have to be the first in line, especially when it comes to listings. You have about a 70% chance of winning that listing, more so than the second or third person in line. So that's our primary goal. So the ROI here is, like Jason was mentioning, 5,000 homes are going to be listed in your area. Somebody's going to win it. Well, whoever gets there first, builds that relationship, does the outreach that Jason kind of put an exclamation point on, is going to win. And that's where the ROI comes from us, is generating revenue. But there are some cost savings in leveraging data. But I completely agree with your point. When you look at data companies out there, or any product, always ask those hard questions. Why don't I just blast everybody? Is the cost savings really there? In our case, we've been able to bring a very affordable product to market, so I'm excited to be able to address that question directly.
Cool, great. Ben?
Yeah, so our data science team is broken up into three groups, right? We're not just collecting data for the thrill of having piles and piles of data. We do very, very specific things with it. The first group is what we call the queuing data team, right? So we are working hundreds of thousands of leads. We call every lead up to 26 times. And so how do you know what lead to call at what moment in time and who to call that lead? And so the data science team is looking at a tremendous amount of different data points on each individual record, and how many times we've called that record, when we've called that record, and then who has called that record. And how do you do that ideal matching to queue up the right lead to the right person at the right time? The second piece of our data group is matching. This is probably our biggest piece of our secret sauce. We are looking at a tremendous amount of data points on agents, historically where they've bought homes, or where they've sold homes, the neighborhoods, the price points, the languages they speak, do they work better with first-time home buyers, empty nesters, people from out of town, in town, what's their current capacity, because that's very impactful. And historically, when we've passed them similar type of consumers, what have they done with them? And so taking all of that data and having that big matching problem is complicated enough, and then you need to know real-time availability, right? A lot of what our platform does is in real time, while we have a consumer on the line, we click one button and it sends push notifications to each agent, not all at once, but in priority order based on who has the highest probability of closing. Much like an Uber, for instance, right? If I want to call an Uber, I click one button. It's actually messaging lots of different drivers at the same time, and one driver who says, I'm available now in the best location, will be that match for me. So it's a similar situation there. And the third part of our data team is post-referral, right? Looking at all the data of when we pass referrals to agents, what actions can we take to impact the close cycle? And when do you take those actions? And how do you take those actions? What's by a human? What's automated? So, you can't just think of data as this one big mound of things. You have to think of what is the particular problem I'm trying to solve, and where's the data that I go to get to solve that particular problem.
Interesting. Okay.
I like the way you framed the question around ROI. The way people say, like, what is your main competitor? We often internally think about as the refrigerator magnet as Ojo's main competitor. And so, like, summarize for my mom, I'm like, yeah, I built a refrigerator magnet on steroids. Turns out that's a very cheap product to compete with. But the way that someone measures ROI is, I'm getting thousands of leads. The most important thing is how many turn into homes and do I make commissions off of? Where we thrive is so many of those leads we touch as a realtor, and then it turns out they're not ready to go see a home. Ojo is an extremely affordable product because it is a machine that is going to stay with that person for a week or 3 years and be there ready to do what the refrigerator magnet is intended to do, is say, hey, I'm a great realtor. I can help you get into that home whenever you're ready.
Got it. So follow-up question for you, John.
Yeah.
So my problem that I've always had with bots, right, is that the ones that I've interacted with, and I haven't interacted with Ojo yet, but I'm looking forward to playing with
Pull out
sort
your
of the
phone and
pilot.
just do it live.
Yeah, right. The issue that I always seem to have is that the bots don't really ever know when to take over or when to hand over to a human, right? And so I'll either get a bunch of nonsensical sort of replies to me, right, from the bot, or oftentimes I'll get nonsensical replies from a human too. But still, it's either way. But, how do you tread that delicate balance? And does it change at all from person to person, client to client, application to application?
Yeah, it's a super good question. So the one thing, the difference between this technology and most Facebook Messenger bots that I think the industry is realizing, those are 2-year-old technologies. Like, you're talking to a child. You never put a child in place to actually help in your business. Questionable about a college student, but we'll call this a responsible college student. The reason when you talk to Ojo, it is so much smarter than anything else you've talked to, including Siri, Alexa, and some of the best world-class technologies, is because if it has low confidence that it knows what you're saying, it asks a human real time. And so we have a human army fired up, ready, that basically operate as assistants to the technology versus the technology as an assistant to them. And so you don't get that same level of mistake. And as a consumer, you have no idea, but it's really because that machine is asking for help when it's not confident. And that is a much better place to be until we're deep in the future and machines are running everything. But for now, you're going to get a better experience in this way.
It's actually comforting to know that there are humans that are providing the actual touch points, the actual content, the transition points, and everything like that, right? So, all right. So we only got a few minutes left, so I wanted to throw out a question to the group again. So from your all's perspective, not including your own companies, right, what were the most impactful technologies for realtors in 2017? And what do you think is going to be the most impactful for 18 from your perspective?
Well, I think 2017 was kind of the coming of age of online marketing. I mean, obviously, refrigerator magnets and postcards and signs in the yard, they'll always have a place in real estate. But I think, at least for our client base and a lot of the people that we've talked to across the country, is this was the year, 2017, where Facebook and other avenues of kind of getting your name out there from a branding or even lead capture is where that has kind of cemented. As far as 2018 and beyond, we really see the future really honing in and centered around service. And I think I want to make this statement, which is, a lot of, whether you're talking about bots or data, is that real estate is about service. And this is one of the things that I've always been asked is, how is technology going to replace or augment or enhance real estate business? And I always say, it's the one thing that I know for sure is that the people in this room here are going to be so critical and have so much impact on the future of not just the industry, but of the technology, us as providers. You are the center of our universe and have way more power than I think sometimes you realize on how you're going to influence the future of technology. So I think next year is going to be how agents kind of come to the table and say, hey, I want to participate in this conversation. I'm going to force our vendors to listen to what our needs are. And I think we're going to be there waiting very happily saying, all right, let's work together on how we can build a successful future together. I think there's a lot of this weird talk about agents being replaced by technology. I'm a complete believer of the opposite. I think agents are the only thing that can empower companies like us up here today.
That was unprompted, by the way. Go ahead, Ben.
No, I completely agree with that, and data is only so good as who's creating it and who's using it to their advantage. In 2017, you started hearing more and more about this role, the data scientist. You think 5-10 years ago, that is a job that did not exist, right? You didn't have that on people's resumes. Now everyone seems to have that they're data scientists on their resume, which is challenging to figure out who actually knows what they're talking about. And so in this world, I think 17 was all this confusion. We need data. Why? I don't know. We need someone who knows how to work with data. Why? I don't know, right? 18, I think a lot of those answers are going to become clear as a lot of the riffraff fall off and the real people who are using data in the proper way to add a lot of value to agents and the consumers and the entire industry rise and create a lot of value from that. I was talking to Carlos from Hunt right before this, and he was telling me, he said data is the gold of the future. Right? Wars were fought over oil in the past. In the future, this data will be this valuable asset. Who creates that data? The people in this room, the consumers. Who utilizes that data? The people in this room, the consumers. And so what can we as vendors do to cut through the noise, make it so simple that everyone has that power of the data at their fingertips without the pain and the confusion I think that they felt in 17. I think 2018 will clarify a lot of things.
Cool, thanks. John?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sound repetitive, but when I hear that question, like, what was the most powerful technology? My first mind is like, it was space travel in 2017. Like, that was pretty impressive. But it actually turns out that what made all of those headline technology advancements in 2017 possible is happening in real estate, which is AI as a category has been around since 1960, but hasn't done anything really interesting. Computing power and normalization of data made huge strides in the best tech teams last year. Non-sexy doesn't make headlines, but what that means now is there are companies with a lot of data, which you guys have a ton and are armed much more than other players in this industry, are now able to actually make use of that. And I think companies are going to, in 2018, be able to do special things they've never been able to do now that that data is available, normalized, and communicating with each other.
Great. Well, thanks for that. So we're out of time. Wanted to thank all of you for participating. We're looking forward to working with you all in 2018.